time if you can't do the time. Yeah. Don't do it. And keep your eye on the sparrow.
Sammy Davis Jr. had the weirdest singing voice. This is him. The song is called Eye of the Sparrow. We're talking about bird people. This is a theme to a TV show called Beretta. It was a cop show in the 70s. This is on when I was very young, but I remember... When girl don't do it. I remember Beretta being in reruns when I was a little kid. The guy who was in it was a guy named Robert Blake. He had been a child actor, been an actor his whole life. He was one of the Little Rascals, in fact. Last few years of that show, Our Gang, the Little Rascals, Robert Blake was a child actor in that show. And he would go on to be in Beretta. He had one of the longest careers in Hollywood. Robert Blake died at 89 years old. He got really, really well known, even by people who didn't know him, when he was accused of killing his wife about 20 years ago. And that accusation really kind of overshadowed the rest of his career because he was in court accused of killing a woman named Bonnie Lee Bakley. Had been outside a restaurant, and the accusation was that he left her there, but then went to get a gun and came back. And so I don't know that he ever had a comeback. But again, this is also the downside of these actors who in real life present themselves as real tough guys. Robert Blake was always wanted you to know what a tough guy he was. I don't know if he had Napoleon syndrome or what it was, but he's a tough guy. And then you get accused of something like killing your wife, and all of a sudden you're like acting like a mouse in court. You know, the tough guy. You've built your whole career and your personality on being a tough guy. And that's probably what led to the fact that he probably did shoot his wife. But they found him not guilty. Her family sued him for $30 million, and he had to file for bankruptcy. But he was earlier in his career, he was a big deal. He was in the film version of In Cold Blood, which was a very, very popular book that they turned into a very successful movie. But they said that he died of heart disease. And that trial was, you figure not even 10 years after O.J. This was another trial. Robert Blake accused of killing his wife. And, again, he dyed his hair for a long, long time. And when you're accused of something and you have to be in court, they always want you to look as frail as possible. So they told him to stop dyeing his hair. So he let his hair go white. So he'd look like an old man. Every time they put one of these mob bosses on trial or Cosby or anyone, they give him an oxygen tank. Mm-hmm. Because a capital murder trial or anything of that nature, it's mostly theater. It's trying to get some kind of empathy from the jury or whatever. So they want the defendant to, my wife and I were, Gwen more than me, she kind of brought me into it. She was transfixed by that Alex Murdaugh murder trial. That lawyer who killed his family and, they just found him guilty of whatever. And she had watched a documentary on it. And then when we were home over the weekend, I think might be when the guilty verdict came down. Because we were off last Friday because of the Guardians game. And I think it was that day that the verdict came down. So we're just watching that coverage. And it's all these people from the town that are outside the courtroom. I'm like, would you go and stand in front of a courtroom because a guy you knew was on trial? Like, I don't know. All of these people standing outside the courtroom waiting for the verdict. Like, get it on TV like everybody else.
Yeah, they want to be there for the live event.
And then what?
I don't know. You go,
yay!
Whoa, yeah!
Time to go home. I just thought it was really weird. So Robert Blake, one of the, not every celebrity trial is about a murder. You had O.J., you had Phil Spector, who was found guilty. But Robert Blake was not found guilty. And he had been an actor his entire life. And he said that America was the only family he ever had. But he was adamant that he did not kill his wife. I don't remember what he said happened. But they had They laid the whole story out, that their marriage had been very tumultuous and all this stuff. And the jury ultimately acquitted him, but her family sued him. And they had one kid that was like raised by a relative or something. So anyway, he was a child actor, and then he was in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre with Humphrey Bogart, and, back in the day. But Beretta is what I remember Robert Blake from. But I'm probably the only person here who remembers that.
Yes.
Yep. Cosign.
So, I always there was a show about World War II or fighter pilots or something that had this actor, Robert Conrad, on it. There was a show called Ba Ba Black Sheep when I was a kid. And Robert Conrad was another one of these actors who wanted everybody to know what a tough guy he was. And he died a couple of years ago. And I would always confuse him with Robert Blake. But Robert Conrad was on a lot of shows back in the day. But anyway, let me go back to Sammy Davis Jr.'s voice.
It's a very strange voice.
Very, very odd. Because it was kind of throaty, kind of Kermit the Froggy.
Yeah.
Quality to it.
No, don't do it.
Hey, Trey Romano.
Right.
Don't do the crime.
They reboot Beretta.
Can't do the time. Yeah. Don't do it.
Don't do the crime.
And
Man.
keep your eye on the sparrow.
The bird.
When the gold
But Beretta was a bird guy. He had a pet cockatoo in the TV show Beretta. And so he's a tough guy with a cockatoo. Now, it was the 70s, so I don't think they were making jokes like, hey, this guy's got a big cockatoo. I think that would have never gotten past standards and practices. But it was on his shoulder all the time and making noise. Here's your cockatoo. Yeah. I had always heard that, Sammy Davis Jr. made a big deal about the fact that he was black and Jewish. I think he might have converted or whatever. But I had always heard that he was, Sammy Davis Jr. was a Satanist. And I don't know if that was true or not. But I always liked that story more than he was a Jewish guy. Because, I don't know. They need more celebrity Satanists is what I'm trying to say. It's just a different vibe.
It shakes things up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who would you like to see? What celebrity would you like to see come out as a Satanist?
Melissa McCarthy.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Any one of them, frankly. I mean, it doesn't even have to, if you know this, Satanists don't worship Satan. Mm-hmm. They just, you're kind of your own God, right? Nobody's going to tell you what to do, and you're not beholden to the whatever.
I'd like Keanu
nonsense
Reeves.
of religion. Keanu, yeah, I could see that. I'm thinking of somebody that you absolutely couldn't see. I don't know. Ashton Kutcher. As like if I don't know.
That could be like a family affair. It could be him and Mila Kunis, and then like the exes, Demi Moore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get Bruce Willis involved.
Like if Kevin Bacon came out and said, "I'm a longtime Satanist," that would be wild because Kevin Bacon's like America's cool uncle. But I don't know. I've got some kids' corner here.
It ain't easy being a kid. Now look at what you gone done did. Whoa, it's time for Kids Corner. Kids Corner.
Mm-hmm. A guy who, it's important to remember that all this right-wing groomer nonsense is always projection. A guy who spray painted the word groomer on a number of libraries was arrested and found with child porn. A 31-year-old guy in Maryland who was an elementary school librarian who spray painted the word groomer on other libraries. Maybe this was just like library turf war.
Yeah.
And he was trying to, but it's not like you're going to put a library.
He's like, no, this is my library now. I'm the groomer. This is my library.
Just tagging it.
Mark his territory.
Yeah.
But it's not like you're going to put a library out of business. It's
I thought they were all out of business, honestly. Everything's
No,
online.
libraries are booming. What are you talking
They
about?
got digital libraries. They don't need can I have a library card?
Go into the
please?
library right down here, man. The downtown branch of the Cleveland Public Library, it's hopping.
I don't know if it's the Lakewood Library or the Rocky River Library, but one of them is really nice and it looks really new.
The Lakewood one is pretty new and it's very nice. And even my sister worked at the Rocky River one for years.
Because one of them is right by my
that
eye
one's
doctor, and I
fancy.
parked in their parking lot. I was like, damn, I know there's not this many people here like reading books.
When we lived in Ohio City,
we use the
we
computers and stuff too.
when we lived in Ohio City, we lived across the street from the Ohio City branch of the Cleveland Public Library.
I just can't believe that there's that like, ugh. I know people read.
Why?
Never
But
mind. I
it's
don't
one
know
thing
why
to
it
not
aggravates
believe it, but you sound disgusted.
me. I'm not
You
disgusted.
sound
but
disgusted
I'm not
that people.
disgusted.
No, you go. Ugh, can't believe people are going to the library
Because I don't know one person. People are lying to themselves that they're like, I go to the library once or twice a week. It's not a necessity. It's a luxury.
It's a luxury to
get a free
to
library
get free
card?
books.
No, but you don't have to physically go there. That's what I'm saying. It's not busy with occupancy. Like people can check out books. You can get them mailed to you. You don't have to step foot in that building.
They
It's
don't
like a
mail.
They don't mail them
books.
to you. No, but the barriers to access for libraries, to your point, I think you're trying to make, have come down. Like you can get on a digital waiting list, and they'll email you when the book you want is in, and
Right.
things like that. Yeah.
No
So
one's
They
just-
they'll give you access to apps like Overdrive where you can get ebooks and stuff like that. So yes, there is that, but there's a lot of people. I mean, when my kids were little, we go to the library every single week.
And libraries,
Every single week.
city libraries have always kind of been at the forefront of technology in that way. You go to a library, they were always the first to adopt some new way of consuming information.
My
or
sister
whatever.
is a librarian, and she works at a library in Texas now. And her job in the Texas library is to teach people to use VR. That is her job.
Yeah.
People come in and say, "How do I do this?" And she teaches people how to use virtual.
Well, yeah, because
reality.
they've
Yeah.
banned all the books in Texas, so now they switched her over to virtual reality.
Right.
When I was a
Now
kid,
they're-
Hey, so now see, VR is where we're going to have books from now on. So
our libraries were popping. Like that was where all the little hood kids would go, like myself, who had dial-up internet, and my mom would be like, "Nope, don't be on the internet while I'm asleep. Don't be on the internet all day. I'm expecting a call. You can't be tying up the phone lines." So we would go to the library to use their high-end internet, and it was always such a long wait. I imagine, I don't know for a fact, so I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but it was so bad to the point where they had to create a computer lab where all the little hood kids would go just to get on the computer, and then they could leave the people who wanted to quietly read in the library alone. Because I imagine we were probably loud or just like not there to read.
a lot of people don't have access to computers,
Mm.
so they need the library.
Well, still.
But this guy was a school librarian who had been spray painting groomer in other libraries, and they searched his house and they found child pornography. 31-year-old guy who looks exactly the way you think he'd look.
Man.
They went to his home and they found numerous diapers, children's dolls, and a child-sized doll in his bed. They said he had no children, nieces, or nephews.
Oh boy, that's real
And they
creepy.
found child porn on his laptop. But of course, he's the one out there spray painting groomer on stuff because that's the way it works.
He's projecting.
Of course, always projection. You know, I was reading about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's trying to loosen up child labor laws in Arkansas. You know, she's the governor of Arkansas now.
Put those
And
little
she's like,
bastards to work.
of course. We
I
have too
agree.
many protection. This is the pro-life party, right? We have too many labor protections for children. Imagine that sentence coming out of your mouth and then signing it into law. Oh, these damn kids. Why can't we have little kids working? Because they found that out too, right? There was somebody was taking photos undercover, and they had to blur out these kids' faces. They had like hard hats on and vests. This company in Wisconsin had like 100 kids working in meat processing plants, like overnight shifts. And these are probably poor families. So they're like, son, you got to go to work. I mean, you know, we need money. And this company they had to pay $1 million in penalties. They're like, oh, gee, where are we going to get that? So, yeah, you've got her in Arkansas going, we have too many laws protecting kids. But because they need to flood the labor market with cheap workers. That's what they need. There's zero coincidence, by the way, that the states that are doing these are also pro-forced birth. They need the next generation of slaves. That's what they need. It's very dystopic out there right now. So she's like, we need more kids working. Vermont banned child marriage, and West Virginia voted to not ban child marriage. So really, there's never been a better time to be a kid. You can get married, you can have a job, you can really be living the American dream all before the age of 10. Courtesy of the pro-life people there in Wisconsin and West Virginia and Arkansas. I'll tell you one thing, it's making Sarah Huckabee Sanders way less hot to me. Way less hot. I didn't think she could do it, but trying to loosen up the child labor laws. Now, see, I'm a different breed of cat. If I could work when I was 10, I would have gone to work. I would have loved to have had a job when I was 10. Now I'm 51. I'd love to be out there flying kites. So I kind of have gone backwards. I was like 40 when I was in kindergarten, and I've kind of gone the other way. But yeah, they had all these photos of these kids that didn't know they're being photographed, but they would have to blur them because they were very, very underage, in like hazardous conditions, working meat processing plants.
Eat like your kids work here. Keep us in business.
Yeah. Hard hats and, Timmy, get over there and hose down that sluice, will you? Oh, boy.
It's not really a floor. It's more of a metal grate where the meat can kind of sluice through.
That's right. The killing floor. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on out there for kids. Hey, Josh.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
Pretty good. Trying to look at things objectively and obviously not condoning, this gentleman's behavior and especially his possession of child pornography and things like that. But just to provide additional perspective, who's to say that this gentleman wasn't, groomed by some type of librarian in the public library system or something like that, when he was younger. And obviously, because of the things that occurred in his childhood, this is exacerbated to, now the things that he's doing, and perhaps trying to show some of this to other people by spraying groomer on there and things like that. Just a thought.
Josh, are you falling down a flight of
I was
steps?
gonna say.
No, I actually just walked out of my barn. I'm getting ready to get my kids off the bus.
All right. Well, you go get him, Josh.
Oh, I will,
All
certainly.
right. Thank you, pal.
You guys have a great day.
You too. There's Josh on Canton.
Sounds
That's
like
a
he's
weird thing to
Well, listen, this
Sounds
guy,
like he's had therapy.
this guy, if some information comes out like that, then that would, of course, that would be interesting. But this guy wasn't calling out a person. He was spray painting groomer on libraries that weren't his own. He didn't spray paint it on his own. Yeah, that's an odd suggestion, but whatever. Well, a lot of information could still come to light. There's a very prominent TV doctor out in L.A. who got picked up for child porn. They picked him up a couple of years ago, but they just sentenced him to probation. Imagine that.
why would
Just
they
probation.
do that?
This is a guy who, I remember this guy being on TV in L.A., Dr. Bruce Hensel, a very well-known TV doctor. He was on Channel 7. They'd have him on syndicated shows. He's a very telegenic, good-looking dude. He asked a 9-year-old daughter of a friend for nude pictures. And it completely removed this guy's career from, it took him off TV and everything else. And he apologized for everything in the courtroom.
No jail time.
How do you spell
Well,
it?
here's the thing, though. I wonder if the family went to bat for him because he and the dad hugged in court because they were friends. And at some point, the daughter's like, hey, Dr. Bruce is asking me for naked pictures. Hensel.
Okay.
Bruce Hensel had nothing to say as he walked out of jail in downtown Los Angeles.
It's time to take charge of your health with Dr. Bruce Hensel. Dr. Bruce Hensel.
Hensel was a medical correspondent for KNBC for nearly 3 decades.
I'm Dr. Bruce Hensel.
Also known for answering viewer questions on the station's Ask Dr. Bruce segment. The 71-year-old now facing a felony charge. The LA District Attorney's Office alleges Hensel asked a 9-year-old girl to send him sexually suggestive pictures.
Did you know the girl? What do you have to say to her family?
Prosecutors allege the victim is the daughter of an acquaintance.
Yeah, sure is. And the girl's dad and Dr. Bruce were hugging it out in court. He was referred to as the preeminent health journalist in America. What the hell's going on with TV doctors? Dr. Oz, this guy.
What's wrong with Dr. Oz? What did he do?
I got to take a break. If you want to send a text for something, 35192. I'll have those Weezer tickets for you on the way back. They're coming through to do Blossom in June if you want to go.
It's the Alan Cox Show.
Everywhere on our free iHeartRadio app.
Or whatever smart